It was dedicated in 1929 in a bungalow, really. People called it the Little White Church because there wasn't an obvious sign. The early years were tough because it was the Great Depression. But in the late 30s, a new minister, Ray Anger, moved here and began energizing the congregation and the community. By 1940, Sunday school was a big deal, bursting at the seams with rascals and angels. After World War II, the congregation raised enough money to buy a surplus army chapel from one of the military bases. You can kind of tell this if you look up at the sanctuary rafters. They've got a rugged, elegant simplicity, but they do look like they're designed to be taken apart and moved. It was kind of a swords into plowshares thing. The new sanctuary was built right next to the Little White Bungalow. That was 1946. A few years later, we raised enough money to buy the art glass windows, including the Good Shepherd window, on the front of the church.
These are real treasures that we have at Kensington Church. The colors they're magnificent. I don't believe I have seen the range of colors and the tenderness with which they are used. It etches in your mind the picture. It's just a wonderful Christian art.
Dr. Lester Bond, who led efforts to purchase the Army Surplus Chapel, actually served as chaplain of that same chapel during World War II when it was located at Camp Callan, now the site of UCSD. It was Dr. Bond who managed the disassembly and transport of the church in 1946, designed its front and tower, and carved the alabaster baptismal font that still graces our sanctuary. After the war years, people began settling into Kensington, and church membership grew rapidly, along with the programs and governance. In 1947 alone, more than 70 new members joined the congregation. In 1950, Dr. Bond led the church to purchase property on Edgware Road that became known as the Guild House. Established in 1939, the Women's Guild played a major role in the life of the church and the Kensington community. The house also has served as a parsonage and is still owned by the church. By the mid-50s, with a large and growing congregation, church leadership envisioned a campus that would encompass multiple buildings and take years to plan, fund, and build. The two-story youth hall on Alder Drive, built in 1958 on the location of the Young People's Rumpus Room, helped address the needs of families with children and teens and concerns about juvenile delinquency. The hall was interdenominational and open to civic events. Over the years, communication with the congregation took many forms, from Ray Anger's famous postcards to the weekly Chimes newsletter to a modern website. Due to its general tolerance and openness, many people thought of Kensington Community Church as non-denominational. Actually, it was affiliated with U.S. Congregational churches, which considered individual congregations to be self-governing. KCC's orientation to local communities does reflect a long tradition of non-denominational service and hospitality dating back centuries to congregational churches in New England. In 1957, U.S. Congregational churches merged with other traditions to form a new denomination, the United Church of Christ. In 1961, the church congregation officially voted to join the UCC. In 1966, KCC demolished the original bungalow and built new facilities widely used ever since by the general Kensington and Talmadge communities. A 2,700-square-foot social hall, recently named in honor of centenarian Bertha Lander, a major church donor. The new construction included offices, Sunday school, conference rooms, and a kitchen and library. In 1973, under the direction of Carolyn Davis, the church opened a non-denominational preschool housed in the youth and social halls, which has served thousands of children and still serves Kensington and San Diego families today. You know, when you look at it from higher up, you see that Lander Hall really is a community resource, the only publicly accessible indoor space for sizable events within walking distance of the surrounding community. Over the years, we've been pleased to support and host organizations like Al-Anon, Debtors Anonymous, and Narcotics Anonymous. We were home to Boy Scout and Girl Scout troops for decades. Perhaps you even voted here. We host fitness and exercise classes and meetings of spiritual traditions such as yoga and Taoist Tai Chi. We host rehearsals of the San Diego Bach Collegium and a variety of theatrical and musical performances. For decades, we've organized traditional holiday activities for the whole community, including the KCC Easter egg hunt, Memorial Day pancake breakfast, Halloween carnival, and traditional Christmas nativity event. At the turn of a new century, KCC continued its robust tradition of service and outreach with support for the homeless, pride parades, and Martin Luther King Service Day. We established long-term service relationships with organizations such as the YMCA, Community Housing Works, Rachel's House, Franklin and Ibarra Elementary Schools, and the Cambodian Village Fund. We also strengthened our ties to our denomination through our active participation in the San Diego Partnership of UCC Churches. A church really isn't a physical building, but rather a community of congregants. Yet by the end of the 1990s, the church's physical campus showed signs of serious deterioration, partly because of deferred maintenance and partly because the church was so focused on its outreach and service missions. In the early 2000s, KCC committed itself to a capital campaign to support major repairs and improvements, culminating in a complete refurbishment and rededication of Lander Hall, a remodeled sanctuary, new adult and children's libraries, a new entrance and patio, a wide range of audio-visual services, and many other upgrades, allowing KCC to more effectively continue its role as a community center. Parallel to this physical reconstruction, our church community devoted its energies and resources to spiritual and social renewal. And as new concerns arose regarding social and environmental justice, we worked with a series of pastors to re-examine the church's identity and mission through reading, study and discussion groups, guest speakers, forums, and exchanges with other spiritual traditions. We also reinvigorated our youth and Sunday programs with new leadership and new curricula. KCC continues a centuries-old tradition of congregational churches that doesn't demand allegiance to dogma or a fixed statement of faith. Here you will likely find people whose understandings of God and faith are similar to your own, as well as people who have different and widely varying views. We like it that way. Our denomination encourages individuals and congregations to engage in dynamic conversations about Christian values, ethics, and practices, while acknowledging sacred traditions and ancient origins. We endeavor to support each generation as it reframes and reapplies the teachings of Jesus and the Gospels to new situations and contexts. "10 years after the dawn of a new millennium, the congregation adopted a new covenant, expressing enduring values and describing new opportunities and challenges. A covenant that reflects our commitment to welcome each individual wherever they are on life's journey and to care for the wide-ranging communities of God's creation.
To believe, belong, and become, to nurture our spiritual growth at every stage of life, to love our neighbors and all the world through local and global outreach and stewardship of God's creation, and to be open, affirming, and inclusive of all,